We've already known this is directionally what they want to do. Ian, though, has said that there is definitely progress that's being made on cross-faction guilds. It is something they want to do. He doesn't have a time frame to commit to, but they would like to have it done before 11.0. So you could likely see this in a content patch of Dragonflight.
Hopefully.
Yeah, so basically right now it is engineering problem-solving time. That's the way that they need to get around this, because obviously WoW's an old game, right? Stuff's been built with a set of assumptions in mind, and they probably never thought that this would change. No. So obviously things will need to be reworked, need to be rebuilt. I mean, look what happened when region-wide commodities happened. A whole bunch of things and the auction house exploded.
Servers fell over. Yeah,
that's just the way that it can go. But overall, this, I think, will be very healthy for the game. I mean, one of the things... so we've both been enjoying Season 4 a great deal. And...
we can get groups.
Yeah. Because I was never pugging Mythic Plus before this point in time. And of course, we play Alliance, by the way, so this maybe the Hordes won't notice that as much, but we really will because of just seemingly more Horde players or whatever. But it seems like this has allowed us to just get groups, get more people, get pugs faster. When we are there as a tank and a healer with our own key, I mean, in the past, I'm sure in that scenario, you wouldn't have had to have waited that long anyway, but we super don't have to wait. We hit the list button, and within 5 minutes, we're on our way to a dungeon. Usually 5 minutes is the longer end as well.
It full on, completely changed the landscape for what it is to play Mythic Plus as an Alliance player. Even in Season 3, it was full on people play this game? I wouldn't have guessed that from the amount of listings before. It's there's just so much more Horde activity than this is. It's a completely different game experientially. All of they just removed an entire layer of sandpaper from it in one swoop. So, sorry, you didn't see all the other players in the game. Whoops, sorry, we've taken the peace wall down. There you go. There you go. You know, you get to see all the other people who are playing it and actually play with them. You're like, interesting. I'm sure it's exacerbated some problems from the one small perspective that if the ratio of healer, tank, and DPS is already skewed, it might feel worse because, if you're adding 100 tanks, 100 healers to the pool, but adding 1,000 DPS to the pool, then that'll increase the numbers of... keep the ratio the same, but it'll increase the numbers of DPS. You're sat going, where's groups?
Yeah, there's
times
that's
numbers.
20 people will apply to us.
Yeah,
we can only choose 3. That's just the numbers. We have to decline so many people in our runs. Yeah. And because the UI tells you the item level and tells you the rating, rather than a situation where it's just, is this player rating-wise eligibility wouldn't make much sense there. You know what? I'll put that whole thing over to the side and we'll talk about that.
No, I think it's actually a good point to bring it up now because
taking it back.
Because we had a super from Chaos Gaming saying, curious on your thoughts on the idea that the toxicity of the M+ community is making boosting ever more popular. I used to hate the idea, but taking 103 applications to get an invite makes it ever more tempting. That's one of the problems that...
true.
Yeah, that's one of the problems you get whenever you're, say, a DPS player. A lot of times, sometimes it happens, whatever, because there's so many, but that's the problem of there being more players to pick from. And it's toxicity is not exactly how... well, that's a different kettle of fish, but from the applications quality thing, this is something I struggle with quite a lot whenever I'm putting together a group, because usually it'll just be either mine or his key that we go through. And it's always I look at the cage and I'm just hit with this moral quandary of, do I try to take what is most effective for me to have an efficient time, go in, get this done easily, get it done quickly, get my loot, and get out? And some of that is, do I pick the people with the highest item level because they'll do more damage theoretically, or on average they do? Do I pick the person with the highest rating? Do I pick the person with the highest rating on this key so I can be sure they've done it before? Do I take people of the same class? It's there's a mage, there's a DK. Do I take the mage for hero? And these are all things you have to think about when you're putting together a group in order to be efficient. You could just take the first 3, but that's going to result in a worse time on average overall. And same with taking people who, like, I would love to be able to go in, and this is something I remember doing a bit more on Legion whenever I could just solo a Mythic Plus, like a plus 15 as a Mythic geared prop paladin, because we were just busted as tanks then. But it's this whole thing of, you know, the moral thing, or no, you could argue the moral thing is to go, okay, well, I'll pick the people who are reasonably effective, they're geared enough, they're the first of the post and they picked. But if I wait 5 minutes and then save 10 minutes in the dungeon, that's absolutely worth it to me. But then it creates the rich get richer problem of no one's going to take someone who hasn't done a Mythic Plus. So how do they do a Mythic Plus? And the answer is, well, they don't pug one because they can't get pugged. And that's what happened to me when I was trying to do someone's ret before I swapped to prot. I'm like, this is impossible. I cannot play this game. I want to, and I cannot. Obviously, you could start your own key, but then even that's like, it takes a long time. And that's just a pretty thing of like, that's not necessarily like, that's not necessarily toxic. That's people making the best choices for themselves, and not even for themselves. Because if you're picking, you know, if you've got 4 players in your group and you're choosing the 5th, then you're deciding the fate of the next 40, 50 minutes, depending on how long the dungeon is or what key level it is, for those 4 people. So you've the moral obligation to pick the one that makes the run go the smoothest. Almost in the same way that if this was literally a real thing, and the dungeon and the penalty for failing the dungeon, because this is theoretically real world, is death, then, you know, morally you're obligated to take the most experienced person instead of someone who can barely hold a sword. And it's like, obviously that's the magnitude of the quandary is a bit different there, but it's like the real thing there, and that's kind of unfortunate. It's not necessarily toxic, but there's also a toxicity element where people are just, you know, they are too focused on that efficiency to the point where inefficiency to them is undesirable, and they start getting angry about it or mad about it, and then, you know, leave a key or something like that, which only ever happened to us once before, and that was because we literally couldn't kill that boss.
Yeah,
it was Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah,
on whatever was going on with that, but that's like a thing of you. It ends up in the problem of, oh, you want to come do the heroic raid, link ahead of the curve. Oh, you want to come do the normal raid, link ahead of the curve, and you're like, well, that's not toxicity, but toxicity does exist, and that's bad. And this whole thing, all of this together, is what pushed people to boost, because if you need ahead of the curve to get curve properly, or to do the raid, but the only way to get curve is to buy it, because you can't just do it, then that's going to push boosting. And that's the problem of like the efficiency oriented entire way the game is designed, and not even just designed, but naturally fell into, because people want the rewards as opposed to the fun. But I would also argue that it is more fun to play, especially with how I like to play. It is a lot more fun with a competent group, and the skill disparity between random players is like, you want to select for the least chance of you having not fun. And it's unfortunate, and that's why boosting should probably be completely destroyed as a concept, because it enables that. Yeah, and it also does that thing of, someone links you curve, they still don't know the mechanics because they got boosted, and that perverts the system by getting people where they shouldn't be. But then even the prospect of the vault having really high item level does that as well, or even, you know, just, well, less so the upgrades. It was like you can just run 2s all day and have, you know, decent enough item level from Valor upgrades for a bit, but it's a bit of a different part. But fundamentally, it's like, yeah, that's why boosting is such a problem. Or one of the reasons why boosting is such a problem is because it's the only way to guarantee a good experience and you reaching your goals.
Yeah, and like, even if you were to take a league solo queue like approach, where which I mean doesn't really work, because it's not like, you know, you can play multiple specs and there's a pick ban system which doesn't obviously exist. But even if you were to do that, you would need the naughty person queue for like levers and people who are like full of BM, and you would still like, you would create this system that filters and categorizes players, giving a good experience to the people who can reliably do well and ascend up the ranks a little bit, and then create a whole bunch of misery and pain as people are filtered, right? So it's like there's a service problem with other players, right? Because it's straight up, are you playing with a bunch of dickheads? Mm-hmm. Come get the professionals. Because that's also the thing. When we think about boosting, sometimes people think about it as if it's a piloted run. Now, a piloted run is maybe I was going to say something to do with you install Parsec in your computer. No, don't do that. They're going to steal all your shit. But maybe the booster uses a VPN to your country.
Yeah.
So that
That's
they can
literally how they
then
do it.
yeah, so they can then log into your account on their computer and play WoW. And that's just full on. You're getting rewards for shit you're not doing. Now, if you like vaguely know the mechanics, know what to do, purchase a plus 15 boost, then 4 very strong players will go there or will come join you, and you'll do the thing. You'll time it well. You could still do all the mechanics and have it be a fun, smooth run. Mm-hmm. What you're paying for is your chances of it being a fun, smooth run. Instead of 20%, now they're 95% or 100% nearly.
Yep.
Or your money back.
Yeah, I mean, that's literally it, right?
Yeah.
That's literally it.
So I suppose for Blizzard, it's like there's always going to be that desire for boosting. You can probably never kill that, but it would make sense design-wise to, I guess you could say, to decrease the BM, decrease the level of bullshit that'll naturally go on in a dungeon. Yeah. And there's multiple ways to do that. You've got to do that through difficulty. Literally, how hard is it? You've got to do that through rewards. You've got to do that through punishment, right? Like, key depletion. Let's remove that. It's already enough of a punishment that you didn't get your thing done. So I think they need to do those things too.